Welcome to Speak for Yourself, delivered by Pizza Hut. Order today at pizzahut.com. I'm Emmanuel Lacho without Marcellus Wiley, but I got to keep it going because I realized that Baker Mayfield is the most undervalued player in the NFL. Now, y'all track with me and fix your face real quick because value is always predicated upon your location. You see, $1 million in my hometown of Dallas, Texas, it would get you an estate. $1 million where I currently reside in Beverly Hills, it'll get you a fixer-upper. But how about $1 million of the currency in my home country of Nigeria? See, that's $1 million naira. It wouldn't even pay for half of a mortgage where I currently live because value is always predicated upon location. So if we really want to talk about Baker Mayfield's value, then we better thoroughly understand the location in which he's playing. Remember when he showed up to Cleveland? The coach, prior to his arrival, was 1-31 in his previous 32 starts. Remember when he showed up to Cleveland after that coach, Hugh Jackson, got fired? Baker Mayfield was coached by a man who hadn't even been an offensive coordinator for more than 8 games in his career in Freddie Kitchens. Remember when Baker Mayfield got to Cleveland, the predecessors that came before him. We can look at the 4 first-round draft picks in Cleveland prior to Baker's arrival. You got 4 first-round quarterbacks. How'd they fare? Tim Couch, #1 overall pick, 22-37. Ugh. Brady Quinn, 3-9. Ugh. Brandon Whedon, 5-15. Johnny Manziel, 2-6. And then lastly, the Browns hadn't even sniffed the playoffs since 2002. But Baker Mayfield not only takes them to a playoff game, but wins one as well. If you really want to understand someone's value, if you really want to understand this man's value, then you better properly understand the context of what he's doing in the location, which is the Cleveland Browns. That's my 2 cents on Baker Mayfield and how little he has been valued. I got to bring in NFL analyst Bucky Brooks to ask you, Bucky, is Baker Mayfield undervalued in Cleveland?
I cannot believe we're even using the term undervalued. Like, I'm trying to figure out what exactly are we trying to say that he is doing that makes him undervalued and maybe even underappreciated. Because when I look at Baker Mayfield, here's what I see. I see a guy who has a 23-22 record, which is right at 500, which is average. I'm seeing a guy who's completing 61% of his passes, which is average. His passer rating is right in the mid 89, 90 range. What exactly are we talking about? He is an average quarterback doing average things. And so how can we say he's undervalued? He actually is probably maybe a little overrated in terms of what we may be having to pay him in the coming months based on an extension. So is he undervalued? Absolutely not. He's an average quarterback paying for a team that has been a little better than average. So he's right at about the right spot for where I rate him and where he should be compensated if we're thinking about long-term values and compensation.
Okay, Bucky Brooks, that's not a surprising take from you at all. But I got to bring in my brother Sam Macho to ask you the same question. Is Baker Mayfield undervalued in Cleveland?
No, he's not. Emmanuel, I love your monologue. I also love all of your opening monologues. It's been cool to see you do it live and in the flesh. I respect it. I appreciate it. But you got me on this show, so I got to talk to you some real. Value is not based on location. Value is based on perception. And so if there's a perceived value, you say, okay, well, I would pay X amount for this watch. I think it's worth $500,000. I'll pay $500,000 because it's a Rolex or whatever, right? But there's a perception, but then there's reality. The perception in Cleveland is that Baker is the guy. Let's not forget, Cleveland turned down trade offers from Green Bay. They said, we want Baker. So Andrew Berry said, Baker is our guy. Kevin Stefanski said, Baker is our guy. Cleveland Nation, the dog pound, go on Twitter, go on Instagram, go anywhere. They're like, man, get off of us. We have our guy. And so value is not based on location. Value is based on perception. And the perception of Baker in Cleveland is that he is the guy and he's not going anywhere.
Well, then we're almost saying the same thing using different words. When I think about Baker Mayfield, this is what people don't understand. You should understand it better than anybody I talk to because of our similar upbringings. We went to a prestigious private school, for those that don't know, St. Mark's School of Texas, literally the #1 school in Dallas, Texas. Google it. You can fact check me. And with that being said, I wasn't really all that smart in high school. Had a 2.8 my freshman year, a 3.0 my sophomore year, a 3.2 my junior year, a 3.4 my senior year. It comes out to about a 3.1 or a 3.2. I wasn't all that smart. But then I got to college. All of a sudden, I was a genius. Because in that environment amongst other geniuses, you aren't valued educationally as much because of where the bar is. Now, had I been somewhere else, I would have actually properly been able to perceive my intelligence perspective to what has come prior to me. It's the same thing with Baker Mayfield. It's the same thing I'm trying to tell you. It's the same thing, Bucky, I'm trying to tell you. You all have to put in the proper context of who Baker Mayfield is. You'll never hear me say that Baker Mayfield is a franchise quarterback. You'll only hear me say that Baker Mayfield is the franchise quarterback, because Baker Mayfield is the franchise quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback. I don't know how he would do in Kansas City. I don't know how he would do in Tampa, in Dallas, in San Diego, or in Los Angeles, excuse me. But I know this Bucky Brooks because I walked the halls of 76 Lou Groza Boulevard, Berea, Ohio, 44017 area code. I know it, Bucky Brooks, because I walked the halls. It's hard to win in Cleveland, big dog. And so y'all have to use the proper context when assessing Baker Mayfield and Baker Mayfield's value. You all are trying to compare Baker Mayfield to Patrick Mahomes, who walked into a Kansas City Chiefs locker room that was already 12-4. Congratulations. You took them 12-4, and then you took them to the Super Bowl. They was 12-4 before you got there. Y'all are trying to assess Baker Mayfield in comparison to how you might look at a Matthew Stafford this year. Congratulations. The Rams went to the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years and went to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. So Matthew Stafford, I hope you take them back to the playoffs. Look at Baker Mayfield in regards to history. He showed up 1-31 head coach. He showed up a head coach who had only been an OC for 8 games. And just like that, Baker takes him to the playoffs and wins a playoff game for the first time since 1994. You all please properly understand the context of Baker Mayfield's greatness.
Okay, since you're a great Texan, I'm going to try and give you context. So my context in Baker Mayfield is he's the number 1 overall pick. And so if we were doing this on fast food chains, when you're the number 1 overall pick, I expect you to be one of the best. So I would expect him to be McDonald's. But you being from Texas, he's Whataburger. So he's Whataburger. So locally, he's a big deal for you. But on a national scope, I don't really understand what the fascination is about Whataburger when I've had McDonald's. It is very, I guess, comparable to being a Californian talking about In-N-Out. The regional flavor, you love it, but on a national scope, it doesn't really register the same as a McDonald's would. And so maybe it's my fault for saying that Baker Mayfield came in the league, the number 1 overall pick. He's supposed to be a national brand. I want him to be a franchise quarterback. So I want him to be McDonald's, but Acho, you're settling for Whataburger because locally that's a big deal, but we want more. I want more.
I hear you, Bucky Brooks. I see my dog's well-traveled. He brought up Whataburger, brought up In-N-Out. I see you, Bucky Brooks. But let me remind you all both of this. Tim Couch couldn't pull the Cleveland Browns up. Tim Couch, number 1 overall pick. Brandon Weeden was a dude at Oklahoma State. And Brandon Weeden came into the league at 28. So it wasn't like a lack of maturation. He couldn't pull the Browns up. I didn't even mention my guy, man who I was an usher in his wedding, Colt McCoy, 2-time Heisman finalist. He couldn't pull the Browns up. Johnny Manziel, he had backings from Drake and LeBron James. He couldn't pull the Browns up. Oh, who else I didn't mention, Bucky? Robert Griffin. You know, the Heisman winner, Robert Griffin, went to Cleveland in his physical prime at the age of 27. Cleveland dismantled Robert Griffin so much so that he had to retire the next year. Robert Griffin didn't play in the 2017 season, for those of y'all that are trying to figure it out. So imagine what Cleveland Brown does to quarterbacks. They do quarterbacks 30, but Baker Mayfield steps into Cleveland, takes them to the playoffs, wins 11 games, first-year head coach. I'm just saying, Bucky, maybe he's Whataburger, maybe he's In-N-Out. But get this, when people come into Texas, they don't ask for McDonald's. They say, hey, big dog, where the nearest Whataburger? When people go to Cali, they don't ask for McDonald's. They say, hey, big dog, can you take me to an In-N-Out? You got to understand, Cleveland, they just asking for Baker Mayfield.
That's such a low bar that we're using. But let's do it this way, because I think yesterday you gave me a lecture or tutorial on inverse relationships, where the more something goes up, others go down. So I noticed when I look at Baker Mayfield, because we're saying last year was a great year for the Cleveland Browns, and it was. They were 11-5. But I also noticed he averaged 30 pass attempts per game because he's supported by the number 3 ranked rush offense in football. I also noticed that we judge our quarterbacks and their ability in the fourth quarter to really make it happen. I noticed in Baker Mayfield's career, he only has 7 game-winning drives. Only 2 of those occurred last year. So what I know from Baker Mayfield is he's a front runner. If we give him the lead, he can hold on. But he ain't bringing us back in a track meet. He can't be the anchor leg that gets it behind, because whatever you give it to him, that's where he stands. So if you want a guy that can just kind of drive the boat but not give you anything more, that's Baker Mayfield. But if you want a luxurious automobile, a luxurious vehicle that you can get in, someone that can take you to higher heights, Baker Mayfield can't do. He can't give that. So my value is wanting something that can give me more, not something that just gives me what I always have. I want more for Cleveland.
Bucky,
that's all. I just want more.
Bucky, you legitimately confuse me. You really do. Because you talk about, no, really, check me out. Because you talk about luxurious cars and luxurious automobiles, and I feel that, and I respect that, and I'm with that. I'm like, let me get a nice little car, nice little watch, nice little suit. Then you talk about McDonald's. Like, it's apples and oranges. I don't see what you're talking about. I actually would agree with Emmanuel, but I think, Emmanuel, you're proving my point that Baker actually is undervalued. Or a better way to say it is this. The value that people place on him is high. It's very, very high. And so people in the Cleveland organization, from management up and from players, everyone is high on Baker. And so we're having a conversation about, well, you don't care. And, you were in Cleveland, Emmanuel. You know the importance of winning in Cleveland. You know the fan base. You understand it. People love Baker Mayfield. And so I don't think there's a conversation of he should be viewed in more importance. We love him. Everybody loves him. Everybody's high.
Not Bucky.
You're high on him. Everybody in Cleveland's high on him. And a lot of people in media are high on him. And also Andrew Berry, the people who sign his checks, the ones that cash in August and September, they're high on him as well. So Baker Mayfield's value is perfectly where it needs to be.
Until Bucky Brooks puts some respect on Baker Mayfield's name, I have to continue to fight for Baker. Now, Bucky, I'm going to drop you this full screen just to put some things in context, try to open up your eyes. You do realize that from week 12 on, Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes' stats are eerily similar. Both played 8 games, both threw 15 touchdown passes, but Baker threw 4 less interceptions. Both combined for the same passing and rushing touchdowns in 6. Baker Mayfield actually had 16. Baker Mayfield actually had a higher passer rating. So, Bucky, regardless of how you look at it, whether Baker is being pulled by the Cleveland Browns or helping pull the Cleveland Browns, I think that with Baker Mayfield, the Browns are good enough to compete with the best in the AFC, because the Chiefs are the best in the AFC, and they were 5 points away from beating the Chiefs and really 1 4th down away from contending and taking that game into potentially overtime or going out and winning it. Bucky, do you think that regardless of if Baker Mayfield is pulling or being pulled with him at quarterback, they're good enough to contend with the best in the AFC?
The Browns are good enough to contend, but the game always has to be played a certain way. It has to be governed by their running game and their defense. So when I look at this running game, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, they're able to get it done. Best offensive line in football. They move people off the ball. When they're able to play from in front because they're dictating the terms with the running game, they're absolutely nearly unbeatable. When I think about this defense and the additions that they brought over, ton of DBs, Jadeveon Clowney coming over to help them out. Look, the defense is good enough. The only thing that can hold them back is Baker Mayfield. And the reason why the game-winning drives in the fourth quarter comebacks are so important is because money time happens in the fourth quarter. The team can get you to the fourth quarter, but your quarterback has to be able to win it. And so I think it's very convenient that you brought up the stat with Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield and bringing up that short sample size where Baker Mayfield may have statistically outplayed Patrick Mahomes. But you know in your right mind that Baker Mayfield is not in the same category as Patrick Mahomes. In fact, Baker Mayfield couldn't beat Chad Henne for the right to go and advance to the championship game. So what is it that we're really talking about? Cleveland Browns can do it. But once again, Baker Mayfield is not one of those elite guys, so I can't put him in that category. He is the X factor in determining whether the Browns are actually good enough to beat those teams in a one-and-done scenario in the postseason.
Now, obviously, in my right mind, Baker Mayfield cannot contend with Patrick Mahomes, so I'm going to stay in my wrong mind for the next 5 minutes. Sam, when I think about Baker Mayfield in context of what Bucky says, I remember against the Bengals, he had a 5-touchdown game. I remember against the Titans, he had a 4-touchdown game. I remember against the Steelers, he had a 4-touchdown game. So when Baker has to, Baker Mayfield can. At least when we saw him in the playoffs, Baker Mayfield did. Now, against the Chiefs, he did come up short. Shout out Andy Reid. Shout out Chad Henne, bailing out Patrick Mahomes during the course of that injury. But what say you? Are the Browns good enough to compete with the best in the AFC with Baker Mayfield under center?
They are. And really, it's not even about being good enough to compete. The Browns are among the best. They actually are. If you talk about the best in the AFC, you talk about the Chiefs. You talk about the Bills. You talk about teams like the Titans. And you also add in the Browns. They are among the best teams in the AFC. The question, when I go back to talking about Baker specifically, I go back to levels. I go back to standards. So if you think about, like, what makes a quarterback elite, because Bucky was talking about Baker's kind of the guy holding him back. I wouldn't go that far, but there's standards. There's levels. You talk about the guys like Patrick Mahomes. In your right mind, he's elite. Guys like Tom Brady, elite. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. These guys have Super Bowls to their names. They're elite. Then you go to a second tier of player, quarterback, Ryan Tannehill's, the Carson Wentz, guys who are trying to prove themselves a little bit. And I would add Baker to that argument. But it's a team game. It's not an individual game. It's not a quarterback versus the defense. It's 11 on 11. And so if you look at the 11 that Cleveland is building, they had a top 3 rushing attack last year, number 1. They added a great defensive players in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, we talked about him the other day, and also Greg Newsome and Jadeveon Clowney and some great DBs from L.A. They're building a good defense out there in Cleveland. And so I think about the teams respectively. They are among the best in the AFC, and Baker's on his way to that next tier of being a great and elite quarterback.
When I think about the quarterbacks in the last decade who have won Super Bowls, not the future Hall of Fame, Tom Brady's or Peyton Manning's, I think about guys, Bucky Brooks and Sam Macho, who were good but had elite moments. I think about Nick Foles, good, but had an elite run. I think about Joe Flacco, good, but had an elite run. Even Eli Manning, he had a couple of elite runs. All we need to see from Baker Mayfield is an elite run, and I foresee we'll see that this year. Coming up, the Lakers got a big win last night, but I'll tell you if they should fear playing the Warriors in a potential play-in game. But first, things are still not good in Green Bay. I'll tell you how the saga with Aaron Rodgers is going to end. Find out next. Speak for yourself. Welcome back. Week 1 of the 2021 NFL schedule was released earlier today, and there are a lot of great matchups on Fox, including the Eagles against the Falcons and the Seahawks visiting the Colts. Now, Fox's game of the week will feature the Packers at the Saints. So, Sam, how excited are you for that matchup?
I am. I'm excited to see who's going to be quarterback for the Saints. Obviously, Drew Brees, he's gone after about 20 years. They drafted Ian Book. You got Taysom Hill. You got Jameis Winston. I played with him back in Tampa. I don't know who's going to be quarterback, so that's what I'm excited to see.
We don't know who's going to be quarterback for the Saints, but we also don't know who's going to be quarterback for their opponent, the Packers. Because speaking of the Packers, reports say in recent months, Green Bay offered Aaron Rodgers a long-term extension that would make him the highest-paid quarterback, but he turned it down. Another report says the reigning MVP has talked to several different players about joining him elsewhere, but the Packers have zero plans to trade him. Regardless of those reports, I know this much. Aaron Rodgers is not going to end up in Green Bay this coming season, because once you fall out of love with someone or something, it's hard to fall back in love with that person or that thing. And it's become abundantly clear that Aaron Rodgers has fallen out of love with the Green Bay Packers. You heard murmurs from teammates that Aaron Rodgers wants out. You've heard murmurs from staff that Aaron Rodgers wants out. And now we've heard the reports that Aaron Rodgers refuses to play in Green Bay. As I look at it, Aaron Rodgers, does he have enough leverage to not play in Green Bay? Well, it's real simple. Leverage in life is always dictated by your options. So what are Aaron Rodgers' options? Oh, he could go host Jeopardy. You know, that game show that pays its host roughly $10 to $20 million? But if your host is a future Hall of Fame NFL quarterback, you can assume that'll be on the high side, closer to $20 million. If Aaron Rodgers plays for the Packers this year, real money, he'll make $22 million. You don't think Aaron Rodgers would give up $2 million to prove a point? You don't think Aaron Rodgers could make up $2 million in endorsements? If you don't think so, think again. For me, Aaron Rodgers ends up elsewhere this season. Now, Bucky Brooks is back with us, but Sam, I got to go to you first. How do you think this saga will end with Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay?
Emmanuel, you talk about love. And yes, when you fall out of love, it's hard to fall back into love. But we're brothers, right? We hang out. We've been knowing each other forever.
Correct.
We argue, we fight, we disagree.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, that love is thick. It stays. We're here. We're together. That's what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay. Yes, they may be in a little bit of a spatter. They might have a little bit of a conversation, an argument, a fight. But Aaron Rodgers is not going anywhere. This dude is staying in Green Bay. Let's go back about 2-3 months ago to Russell Wilson. Remember the saga with Russell Wilson? He wanted out of Seattle. He wanted his own way. He wanted a little bit more control. And you know where Russell Wilson is right now? He's back in Seattle. Let's go back to what happened with Tom Brady on the other hand. So, because I know people may say, well, what's the issue? Well, Tom Brady wanted that control. And Tom Brady went to Tampa and got that control. All Aaron Rodgers wants and all that he's going to get is a little tiny bit of more control, probably get a player or two who he wants back on the roster, but he's going to have all that back in Green Bay.
Bucky Brooks, how you think the saga ends with Rodgers and the Packers?
Well, Rodgers is going to stay with the Packers, but I think the Packers are going to give him a makeup package, meaning they'll sweeten the pot. They will give him the contract extension that he wants because really, I told you, it comes down to the money thing. He has been surpassed when it comes to the money. We're looking at Dak Prescott and Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson making more money than he is. He wants to be in that group. Also, the Packers have to make amends when it comes to communication. They have to make sure that he and the general manager and even the president, Mark Murphy, they have to be on the same page when it comes to having open and honest dialogue. But make no mistake about it, the Green Bay Packers don't want Aaron Rodgers to go anywhere. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have enough leverage to force himself out of the door. This will be a negotiation that goes into the summer, but I think at the end of the day, number 12 is going to run out the tunnel, a Packer, and it's going to be go, Pack, go, like it's always been for the last 15 years.
But here's the thing, fellas. We all know that some things money just can't heal. Now, maybe I watch too many soap operas. Maybe y'all know better than I. But if a significant other cheats on you, you could buy him a purse. You could up the ante. You could buy him a car. But they not going to forget that in the back of their head, you stepped out on him. The Packers, they stepped out on Aaron Rodgers, y'all. They found love in Jordan. And at the end of the day, yeah, they could try to show Aaron Rodgers a little bit more money. They could buy him the purse. They could buy him the car. But Aaron Rodgers has not forgotten, regardless of what the general manager says in comments as recently as 2 days ago, Jordan Love still has a long way to go. Aaron Rodgers hasn't forgot. The Packers stepped out on him. It's over. It's done. They're out of love. Sam, you brought up some great points. You brought up Russell Wilson. The issue with Russell Wilson is he had no leverage. Where's Russell Wilson going to go? He can't retire unless he wants to retire, but he's also married to Sierra, who's just a small global star. So what's Russell Wilson about to do? Can't do that. Aaron Rodgers, on the flip side, he can retire. Because if he were to retire, he's just retiring to another $20 million gig. There really aren't any other comps that you can make in regards to Aaron Rodgers. Sam, I know you've had these conversations before because I've had these conversations before in NFL locker rooms. And maybe we've had these conversations together.
Maybe.
There comes a point in time where you say, hey, big dog, how much would somebody have to give you to retire? Like right now, how much would you have to make? I think we had this conversation. If not, I know you've had it in the locker room. And there's always a monetary amount. It doesn't really matter how successful you are in your career. There's always a monetary amount that you have in the privacy of your locker rooms with your locker neighbors of, man, if somebody offered me a job with $3 million right now, I'm done. For me, I only needed about $600,000 because I was on practice squad. I said, I'm done. Aaron Rodgers has what so many NFL players joke about in locker rooms because they never have the opportunity to get another high-profile, high-paying job that would give him the opportunity to be done. Unless the Packers somehow, some way, get rid of Jordan Love or at least commit to Aaron Rodgers, Bucky Brooks, in a manner that says they are done with Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers is done with them.
Emmanuel, you talk a lot about money. Mm-hmm. You talk a lot about money. You got the suits, you got the watches, you got the shoes, right? I mean, you've been looking good for a really long time. You talk a lot about money, but for some people, like me, it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about your options or maybe yet control. Let's put it this way. My last year in Tampa Bay, I finished the season with Bruce Arians the year before the Super Bowl. I really enjoyed my time in Tampa Bay. And yes, I'd played 9 years in the NFL, so I'd made a good amount of money. My decision when I talked to me and my family, it wasn't about how much money can this team pay me, right? Because everybody has a number. It doesn't matter. Once you get 20 million, what is 30? What is 40, right? Everyone has a number. For me, it was more about the opportunity. I wanted to go to a team. If I was going to go back to Tampa, I needed my family there with me in Tampa. I wasn't going to do the whole traveling thing and COVID. Or I was going to go back to Chicago, where I played 4 years. I wanted to be in a city that I knew, that I loved. The money didn't matter. It was about my options. And even in Aaron Rodgers' case, It's about the control. Aaron Rodgers does not need more money. Once you have that many M's in your bank account, you don't need no more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't need no more M's in your bank account. What Aaron Rodgers wants is control of the roster. And that's the sticking point. The only sticking point here is, will Green Bay give Aaron Rodgers the control that he wants? The Russell Wilson example, I get it. You know, he went back and you say it's apples and oranges. But the difference here is this. Green Bay may not give Aaron Rodgers exactly what he wants because Green Bay is thinking long-term, not 5 years, not even 3 years. They're thinking the next 7 to 10 years, where will our team be? And so, Aaron, if you want more money, we'll give you more money for a year, 2, 3. But we're not giving you a 10-year contract like we gave Patrick Mahomes over in Kansas City. You're not getting that. So, yes, we'll give you a bigger salary if that's what you want. We'll give you a little bit of control, but it's not always about the money. And that's what Aaron Rodgers has shown in this example.
No, I think that's a great point. I think it's really valid when you talk about the money, because the money in the league, let's be honest, it's about the respect factor, right? It's not about how much currency he's really putting in his bank account, but it's how much do they value him in terms of, we're going to make you the highest paid at the position. I think the bigger thing, and I think this actually plays in the Packers' favor, what does Aaron Rodgers want his legacy to be? Because we can talk about him being a Hall of Fame player. We can talk about him being one of the best to ever play. But he has been talked about as an all-time great, maybe the greatest thrower and passer that we've ever seen. But yet when we look at his resume, he has 1 Super Bowl. And so does he want to go out where he walks away from the game in a dispute with the team that has really afforded him the opportunity to be viewed as one of those legendary figures? I think the competitiveness in Aaron Rodgers won't allow him to just simply walk away from the game in retirement. He may try and use retirement as a leverage ploy to maybe get out. But I think at the end of the day, he wants to play. He wants to be viewed as an all-time great, maybe in the class of Tom Brady. And the only way for him to do that is to keep playing. And I think the way that it is now, the only way for him to play and the only place for him to play is in Green Bay, because they hold the cards when it comes to Aaron Rodgers being able to get out of the door.
It's all about levers and leverage. That's what it's all about. So we talk about this idea that Tom Brady could leave, and maybe he could leave at 37 in his prime, coming off of an MVP season, and maybe he goes and hosts Jeopardy. But Aaron Rodgers knows his leverage. He understands what he has. So he's going to use what he has. And I saw it back when we were negotiating for a new collective bargaining agreement. He walked into meetings with the owners and said, hey, this is what I need. I'm Aaron Rodgers. This is what I need, and this is what our entire league needs. He understands his leverage. And so he's not going to walk away and leave his legacy behind. He's trying to build up a dynasty, not only for his bank account, but also for his last name.
But legacy, it comes down to championships. Aaron Rodgers got 1 chip so far, fellas, in Green Bay. In about 13 attempts as a starter, he's got himself 1. If you're Aaron Rodgers and you look at other all-time greats in your generation, Bucky, you might look at Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, in his 13 years in Indianapolis, maybe 14 years, he went to 2 Super Bowls. He won 1. Then he goes to Denver at 35 years old, and he goes to 2 Super Bowls, and he wins 1. You see, Peyton Manning accomplished in a new team in 4 years what he accomplished in his old team in 13 years. Tom Brady, he plays for 18 years as a starter in New England. He wins 6 chips, which means he wins 1 every 3 years. Tom Brady, 42 years of age, goes to a new team, and in perspective, he accomplishes, by winning a Super Bowl in the first year, what he was accomplishing in New England. So if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're thinking about legacy like Bucky Brooks says, you're Aaron Rodgers, you're thinking about legacy like Sam Acho says, you can't think about legacy independent of championships. And Green Bay has proven they're not going to help Aaron Rodgers win a championship. Or if they do, it might take them another 13 years to do so. Coming up, Tim Tebow's expected return to the NFL is being compared to Colin Kaepernick? I'll tell you if that's fair. Next, speak for yourself. Tim Tebow's returning to the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we should all have a huge issue with it. The last time Tim Tebow was on an NFL roster was with me, the Philadelphia Eagles, 2015. We've seen 3 presidents since Tim Tebow last played an NFL game. Now, why is this a huge issue? We've been arguing about qualifications dictating hiring in the NFL for a long time. So much so that we instilled a rule, the Rooney Rule. So how dare we ignore it when it has to do with players? Now, why do I care? Why am I so hostile? Because because it personally affected me. The majority of my career spent under Chip Kelly. There was a time where on our 61-man roster, we had 9 Oregon Ducks. That's roughly 15% of our roster was based upon familiarity to our head coach. If we're going to take a stand on hiring the most qualified person when it comes to coaching, when it comes to assistant coaching, then we have to take a similar stand on hiring the most qualified person when it comes to playing. From one former college head coach in Chip Kelly to another, Urban Meyer. He says that the Jaguars have not signed Tim Tebow yet, but he said it's getting close and he'll make a decision pretty soon. Tebow's trying to make his NFL return as a tight end after not playing in a regular season game since 2012. Steelers linebacker Devin Bush compared the situation to Colin Kaepernick, tweeting, "Tebow got a job before Kaepernick? Wait till we play Jacksonville." Then added a bunch of Z emojis to signify putting him to sleep. We're translating emojis on television now. Wow. Slick Rick Bucher is joining us. My big brother is still here. But fellas, I don't think it's at all fair to compare this Colin Kaepernick situation to the Tim Tebow situation. Tim Tebow is back in the league because he has a relationship with Urban Meyer, who is his, figuratively speaking, ace in the hole. Let me give y'all my example by giving y'all story time. Slick Rick Bucher. I was drafted to the Cleveland Browns, my linebacker coach, a man by the name of Billy Davis. I'm traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, my defensive coordinator, a man by the name of Billy Davis. As long as Billy Davis was in the league, Slick, Emmanuel Lacho was going to be in the league. I got a call at the end of the 2015 season, Slick Rick. Sam Acho, you already know the story. I called Billy Davis because I was a free agent. All he does is this when he picks up the phone. Your ace in the hole is out the league. You see, Billy Davis had gone to Ohio State to be a linebacker coach for Urban Meyer. Emmanuel Lacho had gone to work in entertainment. I was kept in the league because of Billy Davis to some degree. Obviously, I was much more qualified to play the linebacker position than Tim Tebow has ever been to play the tight end position. But I was kept in the league to an extent because of my relationship with Billy Davis, along with my at least minimum level of qualifications. I'm not going to sleep on myself. I did get some All-American votes. Now, with that being said, completely unfair to compare Colin Kaepernick, in my mind, to Tim Tebow. But Slick Rick, what do you say? Is it fair to compare the Cap situation to Tebow?
Well, first of all, it's unfair to say that Urban Meyer is the only reason that Tim Tebow is getting this shot. But I'll get to that in a minute. Yes, it is fair to compare them to determine whether they're comparable or not. So let's go through the litmus test. Are they both former NFL players in their 30s attempting to get back in the league? Yes, they both were that. Were they both offered workouts to make that happen? Yes, they were. Did both of them take those private workouts? No, they didn't. Colin Kaepernick at the last second decided, I don't want the private workout that the NFL is affording me. I am going to go public in order for the media to be there. He threw a wrench in the works. Tim Tebow did not do that. Are they vying for the same position? No, they're not. This is not Tim Tebow getting an opportunity to take a job that Colin Kaepernick ultimately was not afforded. Tim Tebow is attempting to be a tight end. Are they both in the league? Actually, technically, no. Nothing has happened with Tim Tebow to this point where he's actually in the NFL, something that Colin Kaepernick wanted to aspire to. This is where Colin left me, because for a long time, I felt that he was blackballed by the league. But at some point, the question was, does he want to play or does he not want to play? And when he did what he did with the workout, when he had the avenue to work out and potentially get a shot, what did he do? He made it public and he made it a spectacle and he made it about the NFL is scared to sign me. Tim Tebow is doing none of those things, and so he still has an opportunity to get back in the league. So when I add it all up, there are a couple things that look similar, but when you make the comparison, you find out that the two situations really don't compare.
Slick Rick, you are reaching. You said, are they both in their 30s? Did they both used to play in the NFL? I mean, come on, like they're like.
Are those not true? Is that not true,
Rick? If you put up a Venn diagram with all those, everybody. Me and Emmanuel in our 30s, we both played in the NFL. Did they both love watching football as little kids? Slick Rick, that's a big old Venn diagram. There's a whole lot of overlap there. Those would not be the best points to make this case. I agree with you that it's not fair to compare the two players, really former quarterbacks. But the reason why is that if you look at Tim Tebow, he's coming back as a tight end. And so Colin Kaepernick, if he would never say, I want to go play receiver or I want to go play any other position. Tim Tebow's saying, just give me a job, number one. Number two, you also said that, well, Tim Tebow's not really there because of his head coach. The only reason Tim Tebow's even in this conversation is because of Urban Meyer. Yep, there's a big Tim Tebow was out of the NFL for 6-7 years, hadn't been on a roster for maybe 8 or 9. The only reason that Tim Tebow reached out to Urban Meyer and said, hey, let me get a workout in. Urban Meyer said, yes. Emmanuel's got some great aces in the hole. He had his coach, Billy Davis, hey, man, I'm your ace in the hole. I had some horrible aces in the hole. I had a coach who said, hey, Sam, he's my coach in Chicago, Ed Donatel. He's a defensive backs coach. Hey, Sam, as long as I'm in the NFL, you're always going to have a job. I'm on TV right now, and he's still in the NFL. I need some better aces in the hole. If I would have had a guy like Urban Meyer, as long as I'm in the NFL, whenever I get my opportunity, you're going to have a job, I would have been straight. That's exactly what Tim Tebow has in Urban Meyer. That's the only reason that Tim Tebow is getting another chance, another opportunity, a workout, a tryout, a chance to be signed is because of Urban Meyer. Point blank, period. There is no other reason. There's no other explanation. There's no other opportunity. That's the only reason. And Slick, if you don't believe that, you need to draw some new Venn diagrams.
Slick, as I look at it, the only way you can make it comparable is this. Tim Tebow signing just makes Kaepernick's blackballing more egregious. It's not like it actually did anything to make it comparable, but we knew Colin Kaepernick's blackballing, if you will, was already egregious when several other quarterbacks were still in the NFL who weren't even as talented or lack thereof as Tim Tebow. So Colin Kaepernick, we've already known his blackballing, if you will, has been egregious. The kicker is Tim Tebow being signed just kind of pours salt in the wound because we know Tim Tebow is not qualified to be on an NFL roster at tight end. And we're still sat here and tried to say that Colin Kaepernick at least is to a degree qualified to be on an NFL roster at quarterback. We saw Nathan Peterman on an NFL roster at quarterback. We've seen what Jarrett Stidham has done on an NFL roster at quarterback. So based upon looking at those two dudes alone, it's like, if they can be in the league, how come Cap can't be in the league? But then everything kind of died down. But Tim Tebow once again reminds us, wait a second, there are several players in the NFL who should not necessarily be in the NFL, at least shouldn't be in the NFL ahead of guys like Colin Kaepernick. I am with you, though. Like, at this point, I don't know if Colin Kaepernick even has the talent. It's been however long. But I know Tim Tebow ain't got the talent, and I can tell you exactly how long it's been.
But it's not about talent. I agree with a lot of what you said when you compare Colin to other guys that were or are in the league. But we're talking about Tim Tebow, and we're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. As I see it, this is a business deal. And technically, he has not been signed yet. Now, if the Jacksonville Jaguars are smart, they will sign him. Because branding-wise, the Jacksonville Jaguars are the worst team in the AFC. Yes, even worse than my Cincinnati Bengals. They do not sell merchandise. They do not sell product. What does Tim Tebow sell? What was he number one in when he was with the Denver Nuggets? The Denver Broncos? That would be jersey sales. If you look at Jacksonville's attendance, it is in the bottom, traditionally in the bottom half of the league. Their capacity is in the bottom half of the league. Where did Tim Tebow star? Oh, that's right, in Florida. Do you not think that they're not going to sell merchandise? It's the same play the New York Mets made. Did they think that Tim Tebow was going to be a bona fide major league player? Hell
So,
no.
Slick, let me ask you this
They
then.
sold the hell out of merchandise.
Let me ask you this,
and they
though, Slick.
sold
Wrong,
the Tim
wrong,
Tebow
wrong.
products.
Slick, where do you
This
draw
is
the line?
a business
Where do you
deal.
draw the line? Because are you going to keep Tim Tebow on the active roster? You just drafted Trevor Lawrence, who is the most bona fide stud quarterback to come out of college since John Elway and Andrew Luck. You just hired Urban Meyer, who is the sexiest college football coach since Pete Carroll. If between Urban and Trevor Lawrence, you still got a ticket sale and jersey sale problem, then that's on you. Because you can't just continue to use Tim Tebow as a facade to cover up for a lack of jersey sales, to cover up for a lack of season tickets. You just got Trevor Lawrence for that. You got Urban Meyer for that. You don't need Tim Tebow for that.
I'm not going to, who's to say how long I'm going to use Tim Tebow? He may not even get out of training camp. He may not ultimately even get signed. The fact of the matter is, I've told my entire fan base, you know what? Remember that guy down in Florida that you guys all loved? We're going to give him a shot. You don't think that's a feel-good story among the fans down there? We can make this an either or when it comes to Colin or anybody else, or whether he deserves that opportunity. Of course he doesn't. At 33, becoming a tight end, I mean, it's ridiculous. What's he going to contribute except to the bottom line and except to your fan base and what it says about Urban Meyer coming in? Look, he doesn't has established himself as a great college coach, not as an NFL coach. If I'm going to develop goodwill with my fans by simply giving what to this point I've done, which is to give Tim Tebow an opportunity to work out for my team, what have I lost? What have I sacrificed? I haven't sacrificed anything, and yet I got everybody buzzing about the possibility that Tim Tebow might just be a Jacksonville Jaguar and in a Jacksonville Jaguar uniform. I don't even know if he's going to see the field. He could be on the practice roster all year. And no offense to the Achos that I'm doing this show with, but whether you guys were or weren't on the practice roster or were or weren't on the active roster was not going to change my merchandise and ticket and jersey sales. Tim Tebow is in a different category.
Hey, Slick Rick, I know plenty of people that bought some Acho Brother jerseys, so slow your rolls. But I will say this. I've been around a lot of...
I would buy one right now.
My mom, my dad. I've been around a ton of NFL locker rooms, NFL coaches, college locker rooms, college coaches. I've been around coaches. I know how they think. Coaches are not worried about ticket sales. Coaches are worried about winning. Urban Meyer is not worried about ticket sales. Urban Meyer is worried about winning. We can all agree that Urban Meyer has been given full control of the team and of the roster. He is not picking a roster to go and sell tickets because Jacksonville is 32nd in the league in ticket sales and nobody goes to games. No matter if Tim Tebow,
not an entire roster.
We could all show up.
One tryout spot.
We could all show up and nobody's going to watch Jacksonville Jaguars games. Urban Meyer wants to win. And as Bruce Arians, my coach back in Tampa Bay, my coach back in Arizona, used to always say, the fun is in winning. And so people come when you win. So Urban Meyer will put people on his roster who he believes is going to help him win, whether they are players or they are coaches. Urban Meyer, the last thing on his mind is selling a measly ticket or a measly jersey that he doesn't care about. That doesn't help his pockets. Winning games, going to the playoffs, that gets his bank account way up.
What is on my mind is the fact that, Slick Rick, you said you wouldn't buy my jersey, but I've forgiven you because you've already bought my book. Coming up, Steph Curry was being Steph Curry last night. I'll tell you if the Lakers should fear the Warriors in a playing game. That's next. Speak for yourself. The Lakers got a much-needed win in overtime last night against the Knicks. Now, L.A. could have LeBron James back tonight, but they're still the 7th seed and could host the Warriors in a play-in game. Steph Curry has been playing like an MVP, leading Golden State to their 4th straight win last night. Joined by one of my favorites, Chris Broussard, NBA analyst. Yeah, get that out your eyes, CB. It's time to go to work. Also joined by my guy, Slick Rick. And we got to talk how much the Lakers should fear the Warriors. Fellas, I told y'all yesterday, I think the Lakers are fine as it pertains to 7-game series. But when it comes down to one game against the Warriors, I am now like Slick Rick, cautiously optimistic. I'm now like Slick Rick, skeptical. Because when it comes down to one game, I think about the Warriors. Did they just beat the 1 seed and the 2 seed in back-to-back games? Do they have the best record over the last month since April 10th in the West at 13-5? Is Steph Curry averaging 36-5 over that stretch? Is Draymond Green nearly averaging a triple-double over that stretch? Did Steph Curry go 4 for 24 over the last 2 games against the 2 best teams in the West, mind you? And the Warriors still win because Andrew Wiggins is coming off of his best game of his career? When I think about the Lakers fearing the Warriors, not for a series, but for one play-in game, it makes me a little bit nervous. One play-in game, do or die, is going to come down to who has the best player on the court. If LeBron James is 100% healthy, to me, he's always the best player on the court. But we know this. He's not going to be 100% healthy if he's on the court at all. Anthony Davis, he's rarely 100% healthy, even when he claims to be 100% healthy. So that leaves Steph Curry to be the bad man and the baddest man on the court. I think that the Lakers should have some fear if they got to play the Warriors in a play-in game. But, CB, you tell me, how much of the Lakers fear the Warriors in a play-in game?
Well, the stuff you said at the end was the critical stuff. Is LeBron going to be healthy? Is he going to be on the court? Is AD going to be healthy and on the court? If they're not healthy and on the court, then certainly there should be some fear there. But if they play, and even if LeBron's 80, 85% and AD plays, then let me see, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much fear should they have of the Warriors? How about a 1? All right, as in no fear. All right, I don't care if it's a one-game situation. I get what you're saying in a March Madness type deal, one and done, kind of, because then you just go play the 9th or 10th seed, and you still are in the playoffs or have a shot. But kind of a one and done situation. Steph Curry could go berserk, and you could end up losing that game. Anything can happen in one game. But the Lakers have handled the Warriors pretty easily this year. They beaten them 2 out of 3 times. The time they lost, they were up big in the 4th quarter, and the Warriors kind of stormed back. But they didn't even have LeBron James playing that game, and they still were up big on him. The 2 times they beat the Warriors, they actually blew them out, and Anthony Davis didn't play. All right, it was just LeBron James. And Steph did not go off against the Lakers. He averaged 23 points this year against the Lakers, didn't shoot it well. There's only 3 teams in the league that he scored less against per game than the Lakers this year. We know they're great defensively. They can at least keep Steph in check somewhat. So if I'm the Lakers, I don't fear them. Now, healthy respect, sure. They are champions. Draymond and Steph have championship medal and pedigree, and you must respect that. But fear, absolutely not. And let me say this. Being the 7th seed in the play-in against the Warriors, I'm not saying it's preferable because you really don't get any break, but that might be better than facing the Clippers in the first round as a 6th seed. You know, you just 7th seed, you get Phoenix. The Lakers are beating Phoenix if they're healthy. Even if you're the 8th seed, you get Utah. I believe the Lakers beat them if they're healthy. So it's not the worst thing in the world to be in that play-in game against Golden State.
Broussard, you hit something that I agree with right at the end, which is they should not fear the Warriors. Because when I think of fear, I think of being nervous and uneasy. And I don't want to see the Lakers second-guessing whether they are capable of beating the Warriors because of all their injuries and their current situation. I do want them to respect the Warriors and what they're capable of, and I think that's why you saw them play the way they did after games 2 and 3 against the Warriors this season after losing that first game. It was a wake-up call to say we can't take these guys too lightly because no matter how we come out, if we make it a possession-by-possession game, at the end, Steph Curry and Draymond Green are an established enough combo to make things dangerous for us. So I am, again, staying in the cautiously optimistic category because I would fully expect that the Lakers would win a matchup. But it is one game. And the last 2 games that the Warriors have played would only add more to me being cautious because they didn't just beat the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns, the top 2 teams in the Western Conference. But they did it with Steph Curry shooting a combined 4 for 24 from three-point range. The idea that Steph has to go off in order for the Warriors to win against the top teams was dismissed in these 2 wins. Steph is now drawing so much attention that the Andrew Wiggins and the Juan Toscano Andersons and the Jordan Pooles are demonstrating we can take advantage of that. If you're going to put too much attention on Steph, we can deliver. And that's what I love about what Draymond and Steph have created, is that they have created a chemistry and a culture where these young, unproven guys believe that they can carry some water for Draymond and Steph. And that is a special chemistry that I've seen a couple iterations of in a Warriors uniform. And don't mistake that either. At the very beginning of this Draymond-Steph run, when Mark Jackson was the head coach, they were coming out of the doldrums, and they only had themselves to believe in, and they found the power of that and ended up making some noise. So for all of that, you put all that together in one game, the Lakers certainly better respect these Golden State Warriors.
CB, this is why my fear is much higher than a 1. Because to the biggest point of what Slick made is Steph Curry, if you try to D him up with 2 to 3 defenders, the other Warriors players have shown that they're competent enough to beat you. And more than that, Caruso would be the primary defender on Steph Curry. Last I checked, Caruso left last night's game with a foot injury. So who now would be the primary defender on Steph Curry? As long as Steph Curry is on the court, regardless of who he is playing with, that team that is being led by Steph Curry has a chance to beat you. Particularly if you're the Lakers, you don't shoot the 3-ball very well. If you have a great shooting night and they don't, you're going to be all right. But who's to say you're going to have a great shooting night? And Steph Curry's capable of dropping, 49 points in 29 minutes, even though he only hits 3 3-pointers in a game? That, to me, says, yes, the Lakers should be confident, but they should also be concerned with the fact that they can get caught slipping if indeed they are slipping and have to line up against the Warriors.
See, I don't think the Lakers have to load up on Steph the way that Phoenix did last night. I mean, Phoenix just threw everything and everybody at Steph, and that left it open for Draymond, who's a great playmaker, and then Wiggins, who can drive and score. He's not much of a shooter, although he's been better this year. He was able to, shoot mid-range jumpers and get into the paint. So the Warriors really don't have great shooters outside of Steph. Poole can get hot here and there, but for the most part, if your defense is scrambling, that opens up the lanes for the other guys. But if you can guard Steph and, for the most part, stay true to your defense and keep him from going off, then you got a much better chance of stopping Golden State. And I think the Lakers are capable of doing that because they're obviously one of the better defensive teams in the league.
Well, this is the misnomer when it comes to the Warriors, because we think of them in the Steph histrionics and all the three-point shooting, that they are an offensive team. They are very much like the Lakers. They are 22nd in offensive efficiency. They are 5th in defensive efficiency. That's not for the last week. That's not for the last month. That's for the entire season. Very sneakily, they are a very good defensive team, and it's where on offense that they are not always efficient or ideal. So they are very much built the same way that the Lakers are. And that's why for one game, one night, I mean, 1 out of 10, come on, Broussard. You got to give him a puncher's chance. Get me at least close. A 3, a 4, a 1 means that you're basically saying they have no chance. And they've already demonstrated this year by winning that first game. There's always a chance.
There's always a chance, especially...
Well, see, I was playing off the word fear.
Okay.
I was playing off the word fear. I'm with you. Like, yes, respect them, no doubt, because they could beat you, especially in a one-game situation. But fear? No. I can't go with fear.
Well, let's make no mistake about it. Respect can turn into fear real quick as soon as you end up in danger. And if Steph Curry starts knocking down threes, that respect will alter real quick. Coming up, Baker, Lamar, and Josh Allen are all in line for a big payday. But I'll tell you which QB gives me the most confidence for a long-term deal. Next, speak for yourself. Let's get to the QB class of 2018, led by Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, because they all had their fifth-year options picked up, but all three quarterbacks are coming off playoff wins last season and are eligible for long-term deals. My guy Bucky Brooks and Sam Acho, big bro, back with me. Now, fellas, when I think about those three quarterbacks and which one I want to commit to or am most confident in committing to long-term, there's really one simple answer, and it's not Baker Mayfield. It's not Lamar Jackson. It's Josh Allen, fellas, because Josh Allen has shown me that his highs are actually higher, obviously, than Baker's highs thus far, but his highs are even higher than Lamar Jackson's highs. We've compared prior their MVP seasons, and we know in their MVP seasons that Josh Allen actually had more total yards than Lamar Jackson, more total touchdowns than Lamar Jackson, a higher completion percentage than Lamar Jackson. Yes, Lamar Jackson was pulled out in many of those fourth quarters because of how big a lead they had, but Josh Allen's highs are higher. Then beyond that, Josh Allen has also had, at least we've seen it, better playoff performances. They faced each other head-to-head. Josh Allen's team pulled it out, and it's, in fact, probably because of Lamar Jackson that they lost that game. When it comes down to long-term commitment, I'm thinking about long-term success. Lamar Jackson has been amazing in his first few years as an NFL quarterback. But we've also never seen quarterbacks who play the game like Lamar Jackson win Super Bowls. Unanimous MVP, tip your hat to Lamar Jackson because he did that. Only other quarterback, only other player to do that is Tom Brady. So Lamar Jackson is a beast individually, no doubt about that. But when you talk about long-term commitment, I want to see something done before so I can commit to expecting you to do it again. All right, Sam, which quarterback you most confident in committing to long-term? Baker, Lamar, Josh Allen?
Hands down, Lamar Jackson. And the reason why is because he continues to prove the doubters wrong. Let's remember his rookie year. He got a chance to play quarterback. People said, well, he can't throw. He's just a runner. He can't throw. All right, cool. Came back year two, and he led the league in passing touchdowns. So now he proved he could throw. Well, you could throw, but you can't win playoff games. You haven't gone to the playoffs yet. Well, the next year he comes back, and he goes and wins a playoff game. I'm just waiting for what people are going to say he can't do next. You can't go to a Super Bowl. Watch what he does this coming year. I'll just say this. I remember watching the draft a couple years ago, 2018, sitting on my couch watching the game, and I'm saying, when is Lamar going to get picked? I had coaches and friends who coached at Louisville. I watched this guy at Louisville. He was and still is a beast. All of a sudden, Baltimore trades back into the first round, and they pick Lamar Jackson. And what did he say? If you remember that interview, he said, I'm going to make them eat their words. People who doubted me, people who hated on me, people who did not believe, I'm going to make them eat their words. And every single season, Lamar Jackson has done that.
He's made them eat their words, but I'm not convinced that he's going to make the trend of quarterbacks who are dominant as runners. I'm not sure he's going to buck that trend, and that is my biggest fear. Are quarterbacks who are dominant as runners, are they capable of winning Super Bowls? Bucky Brooks, come in and answer the question for us. Which quarterback you most confident in committing to long-term? Baker, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson?
See, I can tell that Sam is the older brother because I'm an older brother, and the older brothers always have more wisdom. So I'm going to go with Sam Acho on this. This is easy. This is Lamar Jackson all day because how do you want to determine the success? Do you want it individually or do you want it collectively? Individually, he's been an MVP. You talk about his highs, he's played at a high level. Even his off year, he was responsible for 33 touchdowns. That is not an off year by most traditional standards. Then team success, 30-7 in the regular season. Each and every season that he has been the starting quarterback, the Baltimore Ravens have been in the playoffs. And so the easiest way or the only way that you can win the Super Bowl is you have to be in the tournament. Lamar Jackson under center guarantees that the Baltimore Ravens are going to be in the tournament. That's the number one thing. And so when I think about this and I think about the level of confidence, my confidence comes from the fact that I'm going to invest in the quarterback that is consistently going to play at a high level, which we've seen individually, and who is going to consistently get my team to play at a high level, which we've also seen Lamar Jackson. This is an easy debate.
Now, Bucky, real quick, answer this one for me, because what we can't argue are statistics. And statistics show that if you do have a 2-to-1 passing to rushing ratio, meaning you throw the ball for twice as many yards as you run the ball, you really can't have success. When you think about the Super Bowl champions that run the ball at quarterback, Russell Wilson, he had a 6-to-1 passing to rushing ratio. For every 6 passing yards, 1 rushing yard. Aaron Rodgers, he had an 11-to-1 passing to rushing ratio. Steve Young, 13.5-to-1 passing to rushing ratio. This is how many yards they pass for versus how many yards they run for. We've all heard the phrase, why drive when you can fly? Lamar Jackson's an incredibly proficient driver. He's an incredibly proficient passer of touchdowns, but he's not an incredibly proficient, based upon the scheme that Greg Roman's put him in, passer of the football as far as accruing yardage. Bucky, how can you look at the history of the NFL, such a large sample size, and still put confidence that Lamar Jackson can win you a Super Bowl?
Oh, you know what? The reason why I can have confidence is because the last guy that was on that full screen, Steve Young. Steve Young entered the league as a guy that was an outstanding athlete, one of the best athletes that we've seen at the quarterback position. For the first 7, 8, maybe 9 years of his NFL career, he relied on his legs solely to get him out of trouble. As he got older, he evolved and became one of the more accurate passers in football. Who's to say that Lamar Jackson can't experience a similar evolution? I think the one thing that we have to understand, the way that Lamar Jackson comes into the league, he's going to go out of the league a different quarterback. As he gets older and as they begin to protect the investment and as they tweak the offense to allow him to go from being more of a runner to a passer, we will see the success. I personally would like to see them go under center more and do more of the Kyle Shanahan type running game, passing game to allow him to show off the things that he did at Louisville. Because everyone is thinking that the Lamar Jackson that we're seeing playing right now in Baltimore was the same one that played in Louisville. And that is not an accurate assessment. He played for Bobby Petrino in a pro-style offense that utilized his legs. He can do it, and that's why I'm confident that he's doing it without even utilizing all the things that he did in college. He certainly can do it as a pro. That's why I don't have any reservations about giving him the big contract.
Well, let me bring in Slick Rick now to get his opinion on the topic. Slick Rick, which QB are you most confident in committing to long-term? Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson?
Well, I appreciate that we've taken Baker Mayfield out of the conversation. I think we can all agree on that. I wouldn't have a problem in investing in Lamar Jackson. But if you're asking me who I would be most comfortable investing in, it's not even close. Josh Allen is the only quarterback among the three that I can be confident in that is going to be not only my quarterback now, but moving forward, because he's trending in the right direction. Bucky talked about consistency. That's exactly my issue with Lamar Jackson. Where you find out about quarterbacks in particular and athletes in general is not during the regular season. We can go back and forth on how their numbers compare there. They're comparable. It's in the postseason where it matters most. And what I'm seeing, if you look at the two respective runs by these two quarterbacks, obviously Lamar has one extra year. Lamar is trending in the wrong direction in terms of passer rating, in terms of touchdown, in terms of interceptions, in terms of sack percentage. Meanwhile, Josh Allen is going in the opposite direction. He is demonstrating year by year that he is getting better as a postseason quarterback. So that's where, to me, it's determined what a guy is fully capable of, which is when the lights are brightest. Josh Allen has demonstrated that. Lamar Jackson started off hot. He was good a year ago. It was very troubling the last time I saw him in the playoffs. And so are you telling me I should invest in that over another guy who's trending in the right direction when running-wise, athletically, everything else? Let's not sleep on Josh Allen. First 2 years in the league was number 2 in rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks in the league. He can use his legs, and yet if you look at the way he's developed and the way he's evolved, he's using his legs less and less. And if you compare what Lamar Jackson is doing, at least as far as rushing attempts, it's gone again in the other direction. And that, as E pointed out, that makes me a little bit nervous. I'm investing long-term. I want to make sure that you're going to be healthy. The more a quarterback has to run, the less likely that's to be the case.
And I love the stats and the statistics. I love the numbers, but I'm an emotional guy. I like feeling things. I like going places. I played in Buffalo for training camp 2 years ago, really a year and a half ago. And I remember what people were saying about Josh Allen before last season's greatness. There was a lot of inconsistency. So I love what you said about being consistent, but the talk around town, the talk really amongst people in Buffalo, people in that area were saying, man, is this guy going to go up or go down? And granted, to Josh Allen's credit, he's been wildly successful. He was second in MVP voting last year. He is and has been phenomenal. And I'm a fan of Josh Allen. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. But when you think about consistency, the jury is still out. When I look at those numbers, if we do want to talk about stats, we look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has those numbers.
But if you look at the body of work, because many people are trying to say that Lamar Jackson is just much more consistent than Josh Allen, which is a fair take. But look at the aggregate over their last 2 years. Lamar Jackson has less total yards than Josh Allen over the last 2 years cumulatively. And he only has 2 more total touchdowns than Josh Allen over the last 2 years cumulatively. So if we want to assume that Josh Allen is actually not all that consistent, it's just that, assumption. And you know what they say about assuming. Coming up, Aaron Rodgers is still a Packer, and Green Bay is facing the Saints Week 1 on Fox. I'll tell you why I'm excited about that next. The full 2021 schedule will be released tonight on FS1, but we got a sneak peek of the Week 1 matchups featuring Tom Brady's Bucs hosting the Cowboys, and the Chiefs will host the Browns, and the Fox Game of the Week features the Packers and the Saints. Take a look at the full slate of Week 1 games on Fox, which will also have the Eagles against the Falcons, the Niners versus the Lions, and the Seahawks visiting the Colts. All the Week 1 matchups are exciting, but let me get it started with the Browns and the Chiefs as we quickly move through the gauntlet of the matchups that are most exciting. Browns and Chiefs. What's most exciting to me about that one, fellas, think about it. Remember last year, Week 1, we saw the Browns and the Texans. Deshaun had just got a major payday. Mahomes had just got a major payday. The Texans were in the playoffs that year prior, so we thought, oh, they might make some noise. But the Chiefs came out there and dismantled them and instantly reminded us the Chiefs are for real and the Texans not so much. Texans end up finishing 4-12 that year. So when I think about the Browns instantly getting a litmus test versus the best in the AFC, if not the NFL, we will find out very quickly if the Browns and Stefanski are for real or if they were just a flash in the pan. But let's move on to the Cowboys and the Super Bowl champion Bucs. Sam, what excites you most about that game?
And everything excites me about this game. So I played in Tampa Bay a year and a half ago. All the GOATs that are on the team, Tom Brady, Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin. They got some GOATs. I'm excited about that. But I'm more excited about the Cowboys defense. What will Dan Quinn do with that Dallas defense? They got DeMonte KZ from Atlanta. They got Keanu Neal. They drafted Micah Parsons. They got Nashawn Wright, a 6'4" corner. They're trying to build that Seattle defense. I want to see Tom Brady in that offense versus Dan Quinn in that Dallas defense.
That's going to be exciting. Let's get to the Fox Game of the Week. That's the Packers and the Saints on Week 1. Slick Rick, what excites you about that matchup?
Thank you for saving this for me. It goes beyond the Aaron Rodgers drama, which will make it interesting. But the fact of the matter is that the Green Bay Packers are a Super Bowl contender. And so were the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees. Now, the question is, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, Saints drafted their first 3 picks, used them on defenders. Are the Saints still Super Bowl contenders? Are the Packers, where are they in the rank of Super Bowl contenders? That is what I'm looking forward to seeing. Do we still count them among the best of the best?
Now, let's stay in the NFC because I'm looking at the Bears and the Rams Week 1. Fellas, you're talking about 2 teams with 2 new starting quarterbacks. Justin Fields, Matthew Stafford. Remember, both teams made the playoffs last year, so both teams are capable, and both teams feel as though they are just 1 quarterback away. Now, Matthew Stafford, he has some weapons. He's still going to have Cooper Kupp. He also has Deshaun Jackson, a big-time playmaker, plus the best offensive mind he's ever seen in Sean McVay as head coach. But Justin Fields, we've all said that the Bears just needed to upgrade at the quarterback position. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer. I expect Justin Fields to surpass 4,000 yards in year 1, and it's all going to start Week 1 against the Rams. So that game, that matchup is going to be a great one. But let's move on to the Steelers and the Bills, AFC matchups. Sam, what excites you about that game?
I'm excited about seeing that Buffalo offense, that Buffalo defense come together and show you what they're all about. If you go through the Buffalo's facility, everywhere you see, Sean McDermott has it everywhere. Playoff caliber. When you want to be playoff caliber, you better beat this Pittsburgh Steelers team, who has been a playoff caliber team year in and year out. So what will Buffalo do versus Pittsburgh. Yes, you got to go through New England. I get that in your division. When it comes to winning that AFC, you got to win, and you have to win early.
I'm also excited to see Ben Roethlisberger, the man on the screen right there. What's he going to have at the age of 38, 39 years of age? All right, let's go to the Colts and the Seahawks. Slick Rick, I know I'm excited about seeing my guy Carson Wentz in a new uniform, but what excites you about that matchup?
Did I get the controversial quarterback games? Is that what I got?
Yes, you did.
Look, Russell Wilson just isn't back in a Seahawks or still in a Seahawks uniform, but he has a new offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron. I'm really interested to see, based on how we saw Russell Wilson play last year and the different ways that the Seahawks offense operated and his role in it, what impact is Shane going to have on Russell? How's that relationship going to work? And then on the other side, it is another coach influencing a quarterback. The reunification of Frank Reich with Carson Wentz, a rebuilding offensive line. Eric Fisher's probably not going to be there. So can Carson Wentz survive, still running for his life? And can Frank Reich reignite that magic that he once had with Carson Wentz? I'm interested in seeing all of that in that game.
So many exciting games week one. None more exciting than Fox's game of the week, Packers and the Saints. It can't get here soon enough. Well, I know the Nets feel like Kyrie Irving can't come back soon enough, because he was another addition to the Nets' injury problems last night. And I'm going to tell you just how concerned I am about the Nets' chemistry. Next on Speak for Yourself. The Nets won last night, but lost Kyrie Irving in the process. Kyrie suffered a facial contusion in the second half and had to leave the game. But on the positive side, reports say James Harden plans to play tonight if warm-ups go smoothly after missing over a month. So once again, the Nets add one and they subtract one. It is time to be concerned, if you haven't already been, about the Nets' chemistry. We got about 3 more games until the playoffs arrive, and we still haven't seen the big three for more than 7 games all season long. Now, beyond that, Kevin Durant hasn't played more than 6 games straight. Kyrie Irving seemingly can't stay healthy. And James Harden tried to return from a hamstring previously just to re-injure his hamstring to now return from that same hamstring injury. Fellas, the concern has been mounting for me, but it's really hit the climactic point. The playoffs are here. It's no longer like the playoffs are coming. The playoffs are actually here. And Kevin Durant, you ain't played more than 6 games straight. You got a first-round matchup versus the Celtics. Same Celtics that were in the Eastern Conference Finals just last year. They might take you to 6. And if they don't, you got a second-round matchup versus the Bucks. The same Bucks that just beat you twice in back-to-back games about a week ago. They will definitely take you to 6. And if you happen to beat them, what's going to be waiting for you is likely going to be the Philadelphia 76ers, just the best team in the East. If you're not worried about the chemistry issues thus far, now is the time to be worried about the chemistry issues, because the Brooklyn Nets have to see themselves play together at a high level before I, as a spectator, believe they can. So, Slick Rick, you the NBA analyst, how concerned are you about the Nets' chemistry?
Extremely concerned. You make excellent points, E, when it comes to their chemistry and their durability. Because let's not forget, when we get to the postseason, the game is infinitely more challenging physically. And even through the regular season, the Nets have not demonstrated, at least their top players have not demonstrated, that they're up to the task of facing regular season durability. And you mentioned the losses to the Bucks. I'm looking at their games against the top teams in the Eastern Conference of late. Philadelphia 76ers, an L. Miami Heat, an L. The Milwaukee Bucks, 2 back-to-back L's. Most important element here when it comes to chemistry is not their offense. On any given night, when you have the kind of scoring power that they have, they're going to be able to put a lot of points up on the board. But defensively, I've been hearing all year long, they just need time together, and they'll get better, and they're slowly improving. They're still 24th in defensive rating. They're still 21st in defensive efficiency. Even if they're capable of playing better defense, they haven't had the time together to develop it. And you're not developing that through the course of the postseason. It's bring it and deliver it now. And whereas you can create these margins offensively to protect yourself and your defense from being exposed during the regular season. Playoff games are possession by possession. You need to be able to defend on a consistent basis, and they simply have not demonstrated that at any point. Even the Lakers being injured, we know how good they can be defensively. We have nothing to go on when it comes to the Nets. So yes, extremely concerned about where they are.
And Slick Rick, I love that point that you're talking about defense, because as we all know, no matter what sport you play, defense wins championships. But what I really want to talk about not only is the defense, but where does that defense comes from? I believe it comes from leadership. So you look at the Lakers with LeBron or without LeBron, their defensive efficiency has been top 5. Why? Leadership. You look at Golden State, Steph Curry is essentially by himself, but their defensive efficiency is also top 5. Why? Leadership. Then I go to Brooklyn. And yes, we've got some superstars, offensive juggernauts, gurus. They're changing the game. But defensively, what are you doing? When your body's tired, when it's hard, you got to go back and run back and play defense. And I don't see leaders on this Brooklyn Nets team. I look at KD, and even when he was in Golden State, I don't necessarily see him as the leader. I look at James Harden, where he's been in Oklahoma City. Even in Houston, he wasn't necessarily the leader. And then I look at Kyrie. Kyrie back in Boston, definitely wasn't leading there. And also Kyrie back when he was with LeBron in Cleveland. You don't really see leadership on this Brooklyn Nets team, and that's what got me concerned most about this team that we're seeing today.
And when you talk about leadership, even when you talk about Kyrie, Slick, you notice the games without Harden where Kyrie is there, they're 13-13, 500. Now, when you have Harden without Kyrie, they're still 21-5. So the question also is going to be, someone is always missing. Who's the pivotal piece that is missing? Because I think the Nets could be okay without Kyrie if you have Harden and you have KD. I think that chemistry piece is fine. I'm not convinced that the Nets will be okay with any other combination, whether it's KD and Kyrie, whether it's Kyrie and Harden. I actually think the pivotal piece that is missing for the Nets is Harden. But even then, even if the Nets can get through the East with just the two of them, with just Harden and Kyrie or Harden and KD or KD and Kyrie, when you have to face whatever juggernaut comes out the West, and we all assume it's going to be the Lakers or the Clippers, I don't think the Nets stand a chance unless they have the big three and unless the big three has chemistry.
Yeah, Sam, I think you make a great point when it comes to the leadership. There's a saying when you're playing defense, you need everybody to be on a string. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a matter of everybody has to be in the right place, but I have to trust that everyone else is going to be in the right place, because I have to make decisions that are going to be, that the success of those decisions are going to be determined whether everybody is doing the same thing. If you haven't had any time on the floor together, there's no way to develop that trust and that confidence. And when I look at the Nets, aside from not having that experience together, who's the person who's demanding the defensive accountability? Why have they not improved at the defensive end when they have enough guys that have won championships in Kyrie and KD to know how vital defense is to a team being successful in the postseason? They don't have that guy. And without having that guy, even if you had the time together, you're not going to get to that point. So it's why I've had a concern from the very beginning, and certainly them having no time to even attempt to develop that defensive chemistry only underscores my concern from the very beginning.
And I love these points. And yes, with James Harden, the Nets are 27-7. But let's not forget, this game is about championships. In the regular season, James Harden has a 65% winning percentage. But come postseason, come playoff time, it drops down to 52%. And so even if you are talking about James Harden being on the court, which is important during the regular season, even when it comes to the playoffs, that's a huge drop-off, about a 13% drop-off in winning percentage. And so I still have concerns not only about chemistry, not only about leadership, but even when you have a great chemistry and great leaders, what will this team do in the playoffs?
We all know that they got the big names. We all know that they got the big game. But at the end of the day, if you can have addition by subtraction, I've always said you can have subtraction by addition. Let's see how the big three works if they ever do get on the court together. Coming up, Tim Tebow might return to the NFL. but everybody is not happy about it. I'll tell you how his signing could impact the Jags locker room. Next, speak for yourself. Tim Tebow is expected to sign as a tight end with the Jaguars, but hold off on the welcome back party. Reports say there's a, quote, serious disagreement within the building about the idea of Urban Meyer signing his former college quarterback, Tim Tebow. Adding to that, there are coaches on the staff that do not want to see it happen. Bucky is back with us, and I got to tell y'all, I understand where the disagreement comes from. There's nothing worse in an NFL locker room than when players realize a coach is lying. At every level of football, from Pee Wee to high school to college to the NFL, we all hear the best players will play. In the NFL, you hear the best players will make the team. But how can the best players make the team if you don't have the best players on the roster? Remember, Tim Tebow hasn't been on an NFL roster since he was with me, the Philadelphia Eagles, 2015. Hasn't played in an NFL game since 2012. So if, in fact, you got coaches saying the best players will play and the best players will make the team, then the best players have to be on the team. The problem the Jaguars are going to have is very simple. As soon as you become identified as lying to your locker room, you lose the locker room. And it's impossible for the best players to make the team if you don't have the best players on the roster. And we all know that a player who hasn't been in the game of football in 6 years, hasn't played an NFL game in 8 years, and is coming back to try his hand at a completely different position cannot be one of the best players. So, Bucky Brooks, how do you think the Tim Tebow signing will impact the Jags locker room?
Look, I don't think it will have a major impact on the locker room. Even though Tim Tebow hasn't played in a long time, he's just another of 90 guys that's trying to vie for a spot. I think if you're one of the guys that's a bottom of the roster guy that's competing, you don't even worry about what Tim Tebow comes in and what he's capable of doing. You're so focused on doing your own job that you can't worry about him. And I hear you talking about Tim Tebow hasn't been in the league for 6 years, hasn't played in a real game since 2012. But I'll say this. Last year, Aldon Smith got back into the National Football League after a 4+ year hiatus. Now, the demons that kept him away from the game are not necessarily the same issues that Tim Tebow had to fight to get back onto the field, but still it was a long layoff. Ultimately, Aldon Smith earned his way onto the roster, played and earned his way into the starting lineup, and he made some plays for the Dallas Cowboys. If Tim Tebow is worthy of getting one of the 90 spots, and if he shows that he can play in training camp, then I have no problem, and I don't think the team will have any problem with him being on the roster. He has to earn his way, and if he goes about it that way, Urban Meyer doesn't have to worry about his words ringing hollow in the locker room.
But here's the issue, Bucky Brooks, because I agree with most of everything you said. But if Tim Tebow was maybe a quarterback who would won Rookie of the Year in his first year and then led the league in passing yards his next year, then took a 5, 6, 7-year hiatus and come back, I think we would more so welcome him with open arms. Don't have to look much further than my guy, Vince Young. Rookie of the Year, his first year. Everybody knows he had beef with Jeff Fisher, fizzled out. But we didn't have issue when Vince Young tried to return to the Dream Team Eagles. We didn't have an issue when Vince Young tried to try out for the Cleveland Browns like 7 years after his last game, because he showed he could play that position at a high level at some point in time. Even Aldon Smith, Bucky Brooks, his first 2 years in the NFL, most sacks of any defensive player through 2 years. So then he goes on a hiatus, comes back, and he balls. I think there's a little bit difference of a scenario there. But Sam Macho, let me go to you. How do you think the signing of Tim Tebow could impact the Jags locker room?
It won't. The signing of Tim Tebow, if Tim Tebow gets signed, won't impact the locker room because there's no culture right now in that locker room. I remember my first year in Arizona. I'm a rookie. I get drafted to the NFL, and I'm looking, who are the leaders in this locker room? We didn't have any, and hence we went 5-11 my first year, 8-8 my second year. And then we brought in a coach, Bruce Arians, who brought in leadership. He talked about trust, loyalty, respect. And he brought in Carson Palmer, the bona fide leader of that team. Carson was the guy. And all of a sudden, after 8-8, 5-11, we're 10-6, 11-5 in the playoffs. And I left, they continue to build a dream team. Fast forward, I go to Chicago my first couple years. No leadership. Then we bring in some leadership, and you see a difference. And lastly, when I was in Buffalo, I walk in, that team had all the leadership. You walk in, you know Lorenzo Alexander, he's the guy you go to for anything. Josh Allen, quarterback, even Tremaine Edwards, defense. They had leaders. Jacksonville, there's no leadership in the locker room. And so anyone can walk in right now and try and claim that fame and build that culture. And I think that's what Urban Meyer's trying to build. And so if there was a different locker room or a different team, once again, add in the Steelers in there. You've got your guys, your TJ Watts, your Ben Roethlisbergers. If there was a team that had a culture, there would be a large issue. But this team in Jacksonville has no culture in that locker room. They're still searching for it. They're probably looking at Trevor Lawrence for it. And that's why there's no issues with Tim Tebow being on this team.
You know, Sam, I think you bring up a good point there. You talk about the culture. So let's think about this from Urban Meyer's standpoint. We've talked about Urban Meyer has brought a lot of guys that he knows on the coaching staff, relationships, guys that he can trust and communicate with because they know how he wants things done. Then you look at the connection that we've seen, a number of players, some of those from Ohio State, Carlos Hyde, he's drafted Luke Farrell. He's brought other guys who some of his coaches have coached in previous destinations. What he wants is a level of familiarity and a level of comfort, knowing that I have a core group of guys that know how I want to go about my business. Now, all of these guys won't make the team, but they will help him establish the culture that he wants. When you listen to Urban Meyer, he talks about a very competitive team, a team that plays hard, a team that is in very good shape. Well, obviously, some of those things that he believed in, those core beliefs came from his time at Florida with Tim Tebow. This is partially paying back Tim Tebow for all of the things that he's done for him throughout his coaching tenure, and also giving Tim Tebow an opportunity to be an extension of himself as he spreads the message of this is how the Jaguars are going to get down. This is our new culture in Jacksonville.
But here's, I think, the only thing that you all may be missing. As soon as a coach is proven to be a liar, then you lose the trust of the locker room. I'll take y'all back again. I had a former college coach, Chip Kelly. He was our coach. And after our final preseason game, y'all know what it is, fellas. It's cut day. Everybody knows it's cut day. Head coach knows and players we know. Bucky Brooks, tell me why we're all sitting in the team meeting room, about face, looking at the head coach, and Chip is going to tell us, all right, fellas, y'all just turn in your sweat so our equipment managers can wash them and get them right back to you. We all looking at each other like, big dog, you ain't got to lie to kick it. You washing the sweats and getting them back to 53 of us, but you not getting it back to the 75 that were currently on the squad. We traded Nick Foles, and somehow we acquire Sam Bradford. If y'all remember that year, Marcus Mariota, who Chip Kelly had coached, was coming out the draft. We knew Jameis was going number 1. The Titans had the number 2 overall pick. The whole world knew that Sam Bradford was a piece to try to get Marcus Mariota and that number 2 overall pick. But after a team meeting, Chip Kelly gonna break it down and say, Sam Bradford's not a piece. I'm the only chip in here. I was like, come on, big dog. You ain't gotta lie to us. The problem was that we knew things were being lied and misconstrued. If you want to say the best players are going to make the team, it's very hard to say when you bring in a 33-year-old former quarterback to play a tight end position, even if it is just on the 90-man roster.
Yeah, well, here's the kicker, man. I don't know if I could just say once, because I love the story. That's a really great point. I just don't know if Urban Meyer is saying that the best players are going to make the team. And I don't know if Urban Meyer is lying. I think he's just saying, hey, I want to bring in my culture. I want to build who I build with, and I want to make my team. It may not be the best players, but it also may be the best fit. And I think that's what Urban Meyer is doing. I don't think he's lied in this scenario. Now, you're right. If coaches lie, they've lost the team. But Urban didn't lie when he brought in Tim Tebow. Urban didn't lie when he brought in that strength coach that he knew from back in the day. Urban hasn't lied when he's brought in coaches and friends and players he's played with. Urban is being straight up and straightforward. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. Take it or leave it. There's no lies or deception that I see from Urban Meyer.
Well, maybe they'll prove us all wrong, and maybe Tim Tebow will go on to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer at tight end. And maybe I'll win the lottery tomorrow. Coming up, we have some breaking news. LeBron James and the Lakers fans, well, y'all ain't going to be happy to hear this one. LeBron ain't playing tonight. That's next. Speak for yourself. We have some breaking news. LeBron James just tweeted he will not make his return tonight against the Rockets, but he will be on hand to raise their championship banner. Now, so many conspiracy theories about LeBron James, who's missed the last 5 games and 25 out of the last 30 games. Is he healthy or is he not? I think that he's really just trying to wait and see, like we all are. How bad do the Lakers need him until he actually has to show up? We know this much. He's clearly not 100%. he likely won't be 100%. We thought the tune-up game was going to come tonight against the Rockets, who have the worst record in the NBA. At first, LeBron James said he was going to show up for the Knicks, but after seeing the Lakers handle business against the Knicks in overtime, you know they can handle business tonight against the Rockets. Why rush it? You still may be able to skate by the Pelicans and skate by the Pacers to end the season. Then, if you got to come back, if you're in a play-in game against the Warriors, you handle business then. The question is this, though, LeBron. Eventually, your team is going to need to see you, the leader, out there leading the troops. Eventually, you're going to have to get back in playing shape. And the only way to get in playing shape is by playing. I guess we'll see how it plays out. That's it for today. Fox Bet Live is next.